In a breaking news story that has shocked this nation to its core, Elon Musk has announced he will reverse Donald Trump's ban on Twitter. And that means regardless of whether or not Donald Trump wants to come back to the platform, he will be back on the platform. His account will reappear. It will have all of those Twitter followers. It will be verified. And Donald Trump has said already he won't come back to the platform, that he will be using Truth Social, which presents a bit of a problem for Donald Trump. He needs to fish where the fish are. People on Twitter need to hear from the former president. And going on Truth Social might be a space for him to talk to his supporters. But if Elon Musk takes over Twitter, all of those people are going to get their accounts back on Twitter. The president, former president, will have his account back. And this will be a much more effective medium for getting out the ultra MAGA narrative. Ah, yes, the ultra MAGA narrative. Right now, the establishment is losing control. Bill Gates recently reversed his position, flipping on COVID, and basically saying what conservatives and libertarians have been saying for the past year and a half. And if I told you what Bill Gates said about COVID, maybe I would get banned. Well, he basically said it was like the flu. I humbly disagree. Because YouTube says you're not allowed to say that, right? Take it from Bill Gates or not. The point is, the narrative is flipping. Even those who are pushing fake news and disinformation are coming around and starting to repeat the same lines. Joe Biden cannot maintain the facade anymore. Democrats can't. Ratings are collapsing. Elon Musk is taking over Twitter. And it is the return of the ultra MAGA narrative. Now, by ultra MAGA, I am speaking somewhat in jest. Joe Biden recently was talking about inflation and warned that the ultra MAGA agenda will only make everything worse, which I'm pretty sure nobody believes. Because, well, back when the narrative was in dispute, more so because people on the right or anti-establishment people had a chance to speak, we saw what happened under Donald Trump. The media lied all day and night about what Trump was doing. Then pro-Trump personalities, post-liberals and anti-woke people were calling out the lies, and we were getting the truth. The truth was the economy was doing really, really well. Donald Trump was not as bad as the media made him out to be, but they needed to seize control. And in 2018, they issued sweeping bans of pro-Trump personalities, just about 2 years after the wave. I mean, it was 2015, 16, 17, and into 18 that this pro-Trump narrative was allowed to persist. In the next several years, people still pushed back, and eventually the establishment lost control completely. And that's what we're witnessing right now with Elon Musk taking over. Today, gas prices are at an all-time high. Inflation is through the roof. Diesel prices, all-time high. Baby formula shortages have mothers freaking out. And I know we said it on Timcast IRL the other night that mothers can just breastfeed. It's not entirely true, and many mothers can't, so formula is important. All that matters is it's time for reality to set back in. And that means Donald Trump returning to Twitter. So as much as he might say no, the news that Elon Musk is bringing him back is massive. Because in the end, it means Donald Trump will be back on the platform, trying to fish where the fish are to win votes, to secure these votes, and the time frame, my friends, 3 months. The deal is expected to close in 3 months. I don't know if that means right when Elon Musk walks in, he's going to unban Trump, but that should be what Elon Musk does. Well, let's slow down. I want to talk to you about what's going on right now with the narrative. Donald Trump is actually suing Twitter. He has had his lawsuit thrown out already, arguing that Twitter violated his rights by banning him. So when Trump says he's not coming back, his legal team is still fighting for him to come back. This means the narrative can change right before the midterms. Maybe it's not all good, though, for the Trump supporters. Maybe Democrats are hoping that Trump comes back and they can then scream, "Look at what's happening, the insurrectionists, quick, go vote." Maybe that's the real play. Maybe that's the variable that helps Democrats maintain control. Far be it from me to try and predict the future. Let's read the first story from the Wall Street Journal. But before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com and become a member by clicking that sign up button in the top right. As a member, you are helping our journalists keep their jobs. We are a member-funded website, basically. So all the news we write, the opinion pieces, the columns, everything we do, the fact-checking, it's thanks to you as members. You will also get access to members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, but I will do you one more. As a member of Timcast, you are supporting the expansion of counter-infrastructure in big tech. Recently, Timcast announced that we migrated our website over to Rumble infrastructure. Is Rumble a guaranteed safe space? No, of course not. Nobody is. Is Rumble better? Yes. At the very least, is Rumble competition? Yes. We have more announcements coming soon. When you sign up for Timcast and support our website, we are recycling much of this money into infrastructure to compete with Silicon Valley and big tech. We use Rumble Video Player for our members-only content, and now we are on Rumble's cloud services, hosting the website in its entirety. I mean, there are some plugins and stuff, but you know what I mean. As a member, we will continue to expand the use of infrastructure away from big tech, Silicon Valley, oligarchs, elitists, and cult members, because we're going to put our money where our mouths are. So we're going to hire more fact checkers, more writers. We're going to produce more content. We are expanding, and we are focusing on replacing every piece of infrastructure we use with alternative means to stop the censorship. That means we will be more resilient. That means we will be less likely to get censored. And that means as Rumble expands their competition against Silicon Valley will be forced to bend the knee and say, please don't leave us, please. Oh yeah, that's coming. With Dan Bongino, people like Dinesh D'Souza using Rumble, YouTube will one day wake up and say, we have lost a large portion of market share to these alternative platforms, the alternative networks, the alternative infrastructure, and they will be forced to concede. You cannot maintain this censorship. Now, there is another thing that's happening. I mean, Elon Musk buying the platform is a major spike in the vampiric heart of these demons, and it's a good thing. But I really mean it on the infrastructure stuff. At the very least, by moving over and using the resources we have, thanks to you as members, to this alternative infrastructure, it is putting pressure on these other platforms. That is awesome. We got more updates coming soon. Our developers are working behind the scenes to bring on more new infrastructure. I can't wait to announce the next move we're making, because I think it's going to be one of the biggest and most important infrastructure declarations or announcements. But let's read the news. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Elon Musk says he would reverse Twitter's ban on Donald Trump. I think that was a mistake because it alienated a large part of the country. Elon Musk said he would reverse the ban. Quote, I do think that it was not correct to ban Donald Trump. I think that was a mistake because it alienated a large part of the country and did not ultimately result in Donald Trump not having a voice, said Mr. Musk, who was speaking virtually at a Financial Times Autos conference. Mr. Musk called the ban a morally bad decision, saying permanent bans undermine trust in Twitter. Quote, if there are tweets that are wrong and bad, those should be either deleted or made invisible. And a temporary suspension is appropriate, but not a permanent ban. Mr. Musk agreed last month to buy Twitter in a deal. This we know, so there it is. He's bringing Trump back. Now, Trump previously said he will not return. I reject that statement, Donald Trump. I do not believe it for a moment. Donald Trump is still in the midst of a legal battle to come back to the platform. I genuinely believe Trump will be back on Twitter. That doesn't mean Truth Social has to go anywhere. Truth Social in the past couple of weeks has been expanding rapidly. They're saying within, I think, like a month or maybe a few weeks, you will be able to use Truth Social in your browser. Now, I have an iPhone. I don't use iPhone, so I've posted like 2 truths on Truth Social. Conservatives are really bad at branding, mind you. My favorite meme was they were like, Trump should have just called it Covfefe because people would have downloaded it for fun and been on it. Whatever. I think Trump will be back. I think Truth Social and Twitter will both host Trump's thoughts, but Truth is safer. As much as people like Elon Musk, Truth will be safer. Fox News reports Trump will not return to Twitter even as Elon Musk purchases the platform, will begin using his own Truth Social. Trump said a Musk Twitter takeover would be a positive development, but he will stay on his own platform. Now, here's what I find interesting. Here's a few reasons why I think Trump will be back. Take a look at this story from CNBC. Elon Musk denies claim by Truth Social boss that Trump encouraged him to buy Twitter. Elon Musk flatly denied a claim by the head of ex-President Donald Trump's new social media company that Trump had encouraged Musk's bid to buy Twitter. Now, why would that be? They say Nunes, during an appearance on Fox Business, had said that Trump's social media app Truth Social was all for Musk's move to take Twitter private with a $44 billion buyout offer. President Trump basically, before Elon Musk bought it, actually said to go and buy it. Why would Trump claim that? Why would Nunes claim that? Why would Elon have to deny it? I think this shows that very much Trump and Trump's team are interested in Elon Musk taking Twitter because of what it might mean. Now, this one's a bit of a stretch. I don't know for sure. But why would they be acting like they're involved in this in any way? I mean, let's make it simple. Nunes is basically saying there was some involvement from Trump to Elon. Sounds like he wants back on the platform, and I think a lawsuit suggests this may be the case. From theweek.com. Federal judge dismisses Trump's lawsuit against Twitter. This is from May 7th, 2022, mind you. U.S. District Court Judge James Donato dismissed former President Trump's lawsuit against Twitter on Friday, though Trump's lawyers will have a chance to submit an amended complaint by May 27th. Trump sued Twitter for banning him from the platform after January 6th, the riot, blah, blah, blah. The lawsuit alleged that Twitter violated the First Amendment, that Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act is unconstitutional, and that Twitter engaged in deceptive and misleading practices. The plaintiffs argued that although Twitter is a private company, it was operating as a state actor under governmental coercion when it banned the plaintiffs' accounts and could therefore be sued for First Amendment violations. The suit presented what plaintiffs described as examples of Democrat legislators threatening new regulations, antitrust breakup, and removal of Section 230 immunity for defendants and other social media platforms if Twitter did not censor views and content with which these members of Congress disagreed. Donato wrote the plaintiffs fell short of the mark in attempting to prove the conduct allegedly causing the deprivation of a federal right was fairly attributable to the state. That's a judge. I disagree with that judge because we actually have a couple lawsuits. Take a look at this from HoustonPublicMedia.org. Texas argues Facebook and Twitter are a modern day public square, in defense of censorship law, HB 20. Lawyers for the state of Texas told a panel of federal judges on Monday that Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms act as a modern day public square and can thus be required to host objectionable speech under a state law banning censorship of certain viewpoints. In this case, those requirements have been set forth in House Bill 20, a state law banning social media platforms with more than 50 million monthly users from removing an account because of viewpoint discrimination. These social media platforms control the modern day public square, but they abusively suppress speech in that square. Texas adopted HB 20 last year in the wake of several high-profile cases, conservatives being banned, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you about why I think this one can fly. There's something called POPs, POPS, privately owned public spaces. In New York, during Occupy Wall Street, there's a privately owned space. It's open to the public, but it's privately owned. And when people showed up to protest, ultimately, the police tried to kick them out. Eventually, a lawsuit was won where the court said, if it is open to the public, it is open to the First Amendment on speech grounds. Now, there's a difference between a virtual space and a physical space that I get. But I believe if Twitter says, y'all can come hang out in this space, it is open to the public, but we own it, then people are allowed their free speech rights. In California, this is fascinating too because it's liberals that don't like it, but in California, they have a similar law where you're allowed to go on private property for First Amendment reasons. Yes, I know this because I used to do nonprofit fundraising on private property. Period. Every morning in the office, we get our clipboards and they would say, everybody, you're going to go to these locations and you're going to fundraise there. Some locations were really bad and you'd roll your eyes and be like, how am I supposed to raise money there? Some were really good. But often you would be sent to grocery stores, shopping centers, things like that. Some of these shopping centers didn't like that you were there, but guess what? You have a legally protected right. So there were several instances where I would be at a shopping center, like a supermarket, and the people there would come out and they would be like, you can't be here. And I would say, yes, I can. And they would be like, no, you can't. It's private property. And I would say, ma'am, we do this for a living. We know exactly what we're allowed to do. And then they would call the cops, and usually the cops would never even show up. I once had cops show up, and all of a sudden the cops walk out of the building with one of the employees, And the woman's like, that's the guy. And the cop goes, okay, sorry about this, sir. We tried letting her know. Ma'am, he's allowed to be here. He's doing nothing wrong. You are allowed for First Amendment reasons on private property. Bam. Not in the store. That's where the interesting thing was. There's a compromise in all this. It's not black and white. With this lawsuit, I think they have an argument. They've set a threshold, 50 million users. They've said, First Amendment, you are a modern day public square. I think that's right. But let's go back to Donald Trump's lawsuit about what's currently going on here. And I want to show you this Attorney General Eric Schmidt. Missouri and Louisiana just filed suit against Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Fauci, and other top-ranking officials for colluding with social media companies to suppress freedom of speech under the guise of combating misinformation. This is where I think Donald Trump is correct. Big tech platforms were colluding with Democrats. We know this more overtly from Judicial Watch and others who sued. We also know this from statements made by the government. Take a look at this. In a May 5th, 2021 press conference, Jen Psaki said the president's view is that the major platforms have a responsibility related to the health and safety of all Americans to stop amplifying untrustworthy content, disinformation, and misinformation. Now, that is not a direct, they're not saying you must. Well, hold on. In the same press conference, Psaki said that President Biden supports better privacy protections and a robust antitrust program. Then, July 15th, Psaki stated, we are in regular touch with these social media platforms, and those engagements typically happen through members of our senior staff. I don't agree with this judge who said that you missed the mark. If the government comes to you and says, if you do this thing that we don't like, we are going to be upset about it, I think we should regulate your entity, your business, and they're doing it in private communication with you, we get it. That should not be legal. The government should not be allowed to go to you and say, do it or else. Now, if the government said we're going to regulate speech in a way that protects the speech, that's different. Some people might, probably not these liberal types will be like, how can you say the government has a right to regulate a business, but when they threaten to regulate a business, they're wrong? Because there's negative and there's positive. Positive. The action, so the action taken by the government to demand an outcome versus action taken by the government to open an outcome. So let me clarify. If the government goes and says, we don't like this speech, ban it, you are in violation of the First Amendment because you have singled out speech you don't like and you want it removed. If the government goes to a private business and says, we don't like this specific speech, we think you should be regulated, so it shouldn't be allowed. Coercion. Now, what if they said, we don't like this speech from happening, but the government has no right to limit speech. Therefore, we think you must be regulated to allow speech. If the government has regulation that protects speech, you are not infringing upon someone's rights. If the government passed a law that said we are passing a law saying that arms manufacturers must give people guns within a certain amount of time, you are not restricting the right of a citizen to keep and bear arms. You're not infringing upon it. You're actually helping make it better. Therein lies the big question. Now, of course, the First Amendment says, make no law respecting an establishment of. Now, there's arguments there. The point is, if the government said, we don't like that Twitter is censoring any political speech, we think it should be regulated, and we're going to tell them this in private. I don't believe that violates any rules because they're saying we want to protect the right of speech for all people. But if one group singles out what they don't like, now they are using the power of government for personal political benefit. Big difference. So I will just say this. Donald Trump's lawsuit, assuming it continues moving forward, says to me that Donald Trump intends to return to the platform. He has to. I mean, come on. If they give him his account back and he doesn't come back, he's hurting himself. Maybe he'll wait a little bit, but he's got to. Please, Donald Trump, you got to come back. Bring the fun back. Check this out. Jimmy Kimmel. Truth Social is not so different from Twitter. They will delete your account if you use the platform as a tool for a crime or any unlawful activity, like, I don't know, starting a riot at the Capitol, maybe. Trump didn't do that. But these people are just not smart. Trump did not incite violence. It didn't happen. It's funny because you get a tweet from Lori Lightfoot where she's like, this is a call to arms and we're going to fight. And it's like, hey, that's dangerous rhetoric, right? No, they don't care. It's allowed. Alex Jones says, keep your battle rifles ready. And they say, you're banned. Oh, okay. All right. Empty promises. You see, these people don't realize. He says the biggest no-no, the one they actually call truth number one, they will delete your account if you use the platform as a tool for a crime or any unlawful activity. Now, what I'm wondering is maybe this is why Trump hasn't been posting on Truth Social. He's banned from that one too. I think they're talking about Antifa. I think they're outright saying that the right isn't organizing illegal activities like Antifa does, and Antifa gets away with it. Yeah. You want to know why this is so important? You want to know why I think Trump will and must come back? It's because of narrative control. Take a look at this. Biden highlights efforts to fight inflation, attacks ultra MAGA. His remarks come as gasoline prices have hit an all-time high. Donald Trump needs the narrative. He needs a way to bypass the media. That's why the journalists hated him so much. They loved him and hated him. They loved him because it was just endless controversy and they could just talk nonstop and never shut up. But they also hated him because they couldn't lie anymore. They'd come out and they'd be like, Donald Trump says this, and then Trump would post the video and they'd be like, oh. They would say, Trump said this, and then Trump would tweet, no, I didn't, I said this. And they would go, Then Micah Brzezinski said, Trump thinks he can come out and tell people what to think, but that's our job. Oh. Gas prices have hit new records. Fuel cost, a key marker of the continued inflation in the U.S., continues to surge. The average price is $4.37 per gallon, and diesel is at $5.50 a gallon, both all-time records. Imagine what the news cycle would be if Donald Trump was on Twitter right now. Donald Trump is on Truth Social. In fact, I don't even know. Let me see if I can pull up Trump's Truth Social, because I don't even know if I've actually even seen. I've seen some of what he said, but is he talking about? I can't pull it up I can't show you his Truth Social on the screen because it's not on browser. So I don't think he's actually talked to. Oh, he does. He says gas prices have just hit an all-time high, the equivalent of a massive tax hike on America. I'm glad you're talking about it, Mr. President. However, imagine what would happen in the news cycle if Donald Trump was tweeting about it, forcing the blue check journalist to listen to what he has to say. We'd be way better off. Maybe. Look, every time Trump did something and the media lied about it, it was good because we called it out and we proved they're liars. Now, granted, when the media lies today, we still call them out and prove they're liars. Joe Biden is desperate. He's blaming the ultra MAGA. Okay, well, let's put Trump and ultra MAGA back up top and have them talk about it and counter the narratives from Joe Biden. They blah, blah, blah. He talks about inflation, blah, blah, blah. Biden used the occasion to continue to ramp up his rhetoric against the GOP, accusing Republicans of having no concrete plans to address higher costs. They have no plan to bring down energy prices today, Biden said. No plan to get us to a cleaner, energy-independent future tomorrow. My plan is to lower everyday costs for hardworking Americans, blah, blah, blah. They're all lies, of course. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that everything's the fault of Joe Biden. When he was addressing inflation, he said, we had a pandemic, we have a war. He's not wrong about that. You know what he should say? I think a good president, I think a better political strategy would be to say something like, I will not lie to the American people. First, I'm going to say inflation is caused by several factors, two of which are no one's fault. They were not Trump's fault. They are not my fault. And that's the reality. And that is a pandemic happened. Now we can talk about the responses to the pandemic and how that may have affected the economy, but you've got two different administrations involved. I think everybody can take a little bit of the blame, maybe some more so than others. We also have a war in Eastern Europe. But Joe Biden should have then said, but I do accept responsibility because I am in charge and I am the leader. And rest assured, I will do the best that I can to make sure we make it through this and your lives improve. But Joe Biden can't do that. It's why he's a bad leader. And I will say the same thing of Donald Trump. Trump is also not the kind of person to accept responsibility. I think you need some humility. I can absolutely understand the criticism of Trump where he's always just like, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. Well, Joe Biden's doing the same exact thing. The truth is, under Donald Trump, things were better. They were. Even during the pandemic, surprisingly. So Biden absorbed a lot of this after pandemic garbage, but guess what? It was Democrat governors that were pushing a lot of these policies. Donald Trump got behind 15 days to slow the spread. He's the one who announced the ban on travel to Europe. He wanted that ban on travel to China. It is not all Joe Biden's fault. But Joe Biden is the leader now. Joe Biden shut down Keystone Pipeline. Gas prices are through the roof. Joe Biden banned fracking on public lands. This is partially the responsibility of Joe Biden, who is the leader. At the very least, the buck stops with you. I will not blame someone for external factors, but I will blame them for being bad leaders. And Donald Trump, I will say, did a lot of good things. I do not think leadership was one of them, and I genuinely mean that. Donald Trump was divisive. Donald Trump took the bait. Donald Trump got angry too much. But he did a good job in a lot of ways. I thought No New Wars was tremendous. For the first time in my life, a president with no new wars. That's amazing. The economy was doing really, really well. And so I said, I can accept that. He's not really a leader guy. I mean, he's a leader. He is. Does he exude charisma? Yeah, he's a little brash and divisive in many ways. But the economy was doing well. The problem was the media. If the media just said, we accept that Trump X, Y, and Z, we accept the good economy, people would not have been at each other's throats. But see, the media was dying, and they are dying, and their narrative control is dying, and they're freaking out, and they're screaming, and they're crying. Oh, too bad. Colbert's vaccine dancing. Gah. So they decided Trump was a cash cow. You smear Donald Trump, you make money. This is why Trump needs to be back on Twitter. Now, I don't know about Facebook. He shouldn't be banned from Facebook either. But Elon Musk making these moves all around just good news. In the meanwhile, in the short term, before this happens, we've got to recognize Biden's economic woes with surging mortgage rates. FDA is working on baby formula shortage, but there's no national stockpile. One reporter said they asked members of Congress about the shortage, and they said, what shortage? They didn't even know. We got this one. Attacked on every front, area restaurant on inflation and food shortages. This is local Ohio, but you'll see tons of these stories where they're talking about how bad things are getting. CBC. I know this is Canada, but, we share similar economic issues. Food prices could continue to soar due to fertilizer shortage. And now, the House could vote today on $40 billion to go to Ukraine. That's amazing. Why are we continually dumping tens of billions of dollars into Ukraine instead of, solving our problems? I'll tell you what's going to happen. If Donald Trump gets reelected, if the Republicans win in November, if Donald Trump gets his Twitter back, if all of these things are true, I believe we will start to see a shift in the narrative. We will start to see real American issues make the forefront of the news cycle. This will force members of Congress to change their positions and focus more so on fixing these economic problems. Trump needs to gain control of at least his share of the narrative again. Because right now, you do have Twitter, but it's not just Trump. There needs to be pushback. With Elon Musk taking over Twitter, bringing back freedom of speech to a certain degree, we're going to start to see more pushback on these narratives and these lies. Once we do, and we say things like shutting down Keystone was bad for gas prices, they might bring it back. And then you'll see gas prices go down because of speculation. Now, if you want to blame speculators for driving the price, by all means, go and do so. I'm not defending them, but speculation causes the price to go up. It's really that simple. It's not the only reason, but narrative plays a role. If the media isn't focused on an issue, it doesn't make then it's not talked about in politics. Take a look at Roe v. Wade. All of a sudden, the lockdowns, the immigration, the war, it all gets washed away when the Roe v. Wade thing leaks. Pfizer data came out. How many people have started digging through that? A lot of documents. But the narrative changes as soon as people just, here's the story. Donald Trump had that power to sway the narrative and force people to focus on issues. He can do it whenever he wants because the journalists are addicted to him and the media did not know how to respond. In the meantime, we're dumping money into a war in Ukraine we should not be involved with. We've got food prices through the roof, food shortages, baby food shortages, gas prices, diesel and what do you call it? Just gasoline and diesel are both through the roof. Fuel is just nuts. And now we have this hilarious propaganda. Treasury Secretary warns of damaging economic effects of limiting abortion. Okay. Elon, bring Donald Trump back. That's what we need. Texas, sue these platforms. Don't stop. Keep suing them. I've never been a small government conservative. And so these narratives from the left don't work on me, where they're like, Republicans always said they wanted small government, but now they want to regulate private business. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I've never been one of those people. It really makes you wonder. My positions have always been regulation. My positions have always been that centralized power is a bad thing. So when I was younger, I was more on the left. I was more liberal, like these big corporations should not have unfettered, unregulated access. I didn't like it. And now, today, I feel the exact same way. I don't care what your company is. When you control the commons and cause damage in the public space, you will be regulated. Many people on the right, libertarians or otherwise, are saying, no, we shouldn't allow that. We shouldn't have that because it's a slippery slope. And it's about negative enforcement. It's about making sure these companies can't do a thing, not that they should promote a thing. I don't want big tech companies picking winners and losers. I want to regulate them in a way that says you are not allowed to control speech. Think about it. This idea from many on the right, they're like, if you regulate them, they'll use the power against you. If the power that the government has is to restrict action, that's it, then there's no risk. I suppose the issue is if you allow the government if you allow these businesses now to operate with impunity, they will always censor. Now they're saying, Elon Musk is coming in and the left is freaking out. But Elon Musk is not promising to censor. He's promising to lift censorship. And that's why they're mad. They're losing power. And good. They should. Narrative is the beginning of everything. Votes can only happen if the idea exists. Harriet Tubman famously said, I have freed many slaves. I would have freed many more if only they knew they were slaves. If you don't know about something, how can you vote to change it? I think it's funny. It was Steve Jobs who said, how does someone know if they want it if they don't know what it is or they've never seen it? And it's like, oh, that's a good point. So he made the iPhone. Some people thought it was a dumb idea. And he's like, no stylus, right? But people did want it and it became the standard. I think we need to make sure we have a decentralized communication apparatus, be it Twitter or otherwise. I think the next thing after Twitter is lawsuits against YouTube and Google or, Facebook, whatever, because they are all playing the exact same games. They are of the same ideology as Democrats, effectively providing in-kind contributions in regular communication with them. And it's about time a judge simply said enough. But it's going to start with lawsuits. Let's see Trump come back first. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.